So you want to get better at NHL 22? Well, you got to walk before you run. Today's video, we're going to go over all of the basics when it comes to attributes inside of NHL 22. Now, obviously, most of my content is geared toward 1v1 and Hockey Ultimate Team, but this can apply to ESHL as well. We'll start with breaking down the attributes in terms of categories. So in this video, we're going to go over offensive attributes, defensive attributes, skating, and then other. And we'll just kick things off with other because there's only really two attributes that we can just throw into this bin, and that is fighting and durability. Both of them are pretty useless online. The fighting attribute will just improve your power and stamina when you're in a fight, and then durability just obviously decreases or increases, if the stat is lower, your chance of injury. And again, these really won't apply in online play unless you're someone who wants to fight a lot, and hey, all the power to you. But yeah, for the most part, when it comes to competitive play or just, improving your chances at winning, these two really won't have an impact on the game. So again, most of this content is going to be geared towards Hockey Ultimate Team, and this way, when you're looking at cards, hopefully with this knowledge, you will now understand a little bit more of how the card will perform and the ones that you want to chase and prioritize. So let's start first with the wrist shot and slap shot power and accuracy attributes. These ones are pretty self-explanatory. Obviously, the accuracy attributes, if they are at 99, that means the shot will go exactly where you aim it. So if you're trying to pick that top corner with a 99 overall wrist shot, you're going to get it as close as possible if you aim it correctly. Now, when it comes to the power attributes, obviously that is going to determine how fast the puck will get to the net. Depending on the position that you're using, you want to prioritize these a little bit different. Obviously, in a best case scenario, you have 99 everything, but obviously at launch, that isn't going to happen. When it comes to defensemen, you want to prioritize slap shot power and wrist shot power over accuracy because, well, they are further out and you need to get the puck on net faster. That's going to give you a better chance at scoring those one-timers from the point. Wingers, on the other hand, I've done a lot of practice with this inside of NHL 22. You definitely want to have your accuracy rating higher when it comes to power or accuracy because the ability to cut into the slot and then pick that either far corner or top side, the short side wrister, it's going to give you a much higher percentage of that shot actually going in, the higher your wrist shot or slap shot accuracy is. The next attribute we want to talk about is passing. In NHL 22, they put a big emphasis on changing and making passes a lot more difficult. It's no longer just this automatic hit the pass button and it'll just automatically track to whoever. You've really got to aim the pass correctly, lead your players, and make sure that you've got the accurate speed by holding it down the adequate amount of time. Now, the higher the passing attribute in NHL 22 will determine how accurate and how powerful your passes can be. And like I said, the X factors are going to play into this quite a bit, but passing is going to be very important, and a low passer rating is going to lead to a lot of frustrating gameplay, especially early on in Hockey Ultimate Team. Next up, we have the deking attribute. Now, the deking attribute will control how fast you can stick handle with the puck, meaning moving it left and right, and then how fast and how well you can toe drag with the puck. It'll also impact your ability and your control when performing dekes, like the windmill deke or the Datsuk, all of those kinds of things. The higher deking rating will have you pulling these moves off a lot smoother. Now, when it comes to the deking attribute, in all honesty, you have to really focus on your gameplay and if you actually utilize deking a ton. Knowing that now it impacts your stick handling, moving the stick left and right, as well as the toe drag, do you do that an awful lot in your game? If you don't, then it might be an attribute that might not be all that important to you. If you are someone that does it an awful lot, you like to perform the dekes, be really flashy, then obviously you want to make sure you're using cards and players that have a higher deking attribute. The next attribute we're going to talk about is hand-eye. Now, hand-eye is going to determine your skills deflecting the puck in front of the net. It also impacts your ability when it comes to taking passes or pucks out of the air. I think this is an attribute that is overlooked more often than not, and specifically in NHL 22 with the new puck interception model being turned back on, you can really take advantage of knocking the puck out of the air when someone tries to saucer it through the zone, so that is going to be important defensively. We've also seen from clips and honestly my own personal gameplay of NHL 22 that the tip is definitely going to be a viable option in the offensive zone, meaning that if you have someone with a high hand-eye attribute, they're going to be able to knock a wrist shot or a slap shot out of the air from the point and give you a better chance at scoring in the offensive zone. Now, when it comes to positions to focus on the hand-eye attribute, definitely center. That is going to be the most important. If you have a centerman that has a high hand-eye attribute, it means that when you're cycling the puck in the zone and you can fire it from the point, he is going to give you a better option at tipping that past the goaltender. But also, you don't want to overlook your defenseman either, because if you have a high hand-eye attribute for your defenseman, it means that they're going to be able to handle those saucer passes through the slot. Also, don't forget, if you're someone that takes advantage of the saucer pass in the offensive zone or just breaking out, someone with a higher hand-eye attribute is going to be able to handle and receive that a lot cleaner. Next up, we've got puck control. Now this helps with receiving the puck and getting into a settled state faster. This adds more accuracy on your shots and passes right after receiving the puck. Now puck control is more of a modifier attribute, not one that you really want to focus on solely. This is going to add to your player, not really determine any sort of aspect to it. What I mean by that is like wrist shot power and accuracy obviously is going to be more beneficial for you than puck control, but puck control can help you if you're someone who likes to take a lot of one-timers, specifically ones that, you know, might not be offhand, meaning that, you know, you send the puck over to a left-handed forward and they're not on their offhand. With someone that has high puck control can settle that down and fire it immediately, adding a little bit more accuracy on it as opposed to someone who just receives it and then just kind of flubs it towards the net. Another big bonus with puck control, again, something that might be overlooked with passing being a big change in NHL 22, is someone that does one-touch passes. And what I mean by that is you pass the puck, and as it's going to the player that you've already passed it to, you've already tapped pass again to do a one-touch pass. Someone that has higher puck control is going to be able to settle and send it over a lot more accurate than someone who doesn't. I think that's something you're going to notice a lot in NHL 22, especially early on while everyone gets used to the new game. Our last offensive attribute to discuss is offensive awareness. This attribute is going to handle your reaction time and field of view in offensive scenarios. For example, how quickly you react to pick up a loose puck, or your reaction time to a pass from a teammate. So when it comes to offensive awareness, again, this one isn't one of those specific attributes that we talked about earlier, like passing or the wrist shot or slap shot power and accuracy. Offensive awareness is going to help you in situations like rebounds or in front of the net, or anytime that you lose the puck, how quickly your player will make a motion to pick it back up. While it is a very important stat, in my opinion, it's not one of the most important offensive attributes. Again, it's very situational, and you're really not going to have many players that have such low offensive awareness that they don't react at all to rebounds. So like I said, when it comes to ranking the other offensive attributes, I would rank them much higher than offensive awareness. Now guys, before we get into the defensive and skating attributes, just want to take a moment. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a like, as it does help me tremendously within the YouTube algorithm, and subscribe to the channel if you do enjoy the content. You get the most up-to-date NHL 22 content on YouTube. If that's not enough, catch me live every single morning at 11 a.m. Eastern time on Twitch at twitch.tv/nosleeves12. I've been streaming every single day for the last year, and NHL 22 is not going to be any different. So links are down below. Hope to see you on stream. All right, now let's discuss defensive attributes, starting with defensive awareness. Now this is going to help determine your reaction time and field of view when it comes to pass interceptions, disruptions, and acquiring loose pucks lost by your opponent. Now, honestly, defensive awareness is probably the most important stat in the game, other than speed, obviously. I think there was a lot of confusion for many years when it came to what defensive awareness actually did, but NHL 21 put such a focus on it that it was so hard to ignore. This single attribute is going to basically determine how good you're going to be at intercepting passes. Now, in the defensive zone, if you are trying to stop a breakout or just stop a pass, maybe to stop a cross crease, having high defensive awareness is going to allow your player to actually pick that puck off. Now, with the puck interception model being turned back on, that is also going to aid you in this process, but being able to intercept the puck is just such a huge thing to focus on, which is why defensive awareness is definitely one of the most important stats in the game. When it comes to the positions you want to focus on when it comes to this, obviously your defensemen are the most important. Being able to stop those cross-ice passes is going to be of the utmost importance, but other than that, your centerman as well. When you're defending correctly in the defensive zone, your centerman is more often than not going to be in charge of that guy in the middle of the slot. Having a high defensive awareness is going to allow him to make sure that that's eliminated if he doesn't have correct body position. So make sure that when you are looking at your defensemen, when you're putting them on your team, that they have a high defensive awareness. And if they don't, maybe you're sacrificing offense. Maybe early on in the game, there's a really good speedy defender with a high shot. with low defensive awareness, make sure you are pairing them with someone that has really high defensive awareness. The next defensive attribute we want to discuss is stick checking. When you break down what the stick checking stat actually does, you realize how important it really is. When you hit R1, what happens is your player will reach out with his stick and it will aim at the puck where it was when you hit R1. A player with a really high stick checking stat will allow him to immediately get his stick out to the puck, as well as making sure it is as accurate as possible. If you have a really low stick checking stat and you're someone that holds down R1 or presses it a lot, this is going to lead to a lot of tripping penalties or a lot of passes that just get through because you're missing the actual puck. When it comes to defensemen, specifically defending the blue line as well, someone that is back skating with proper positioning and someone skating at them, a well-timed poke with a really high stick checking stat can be extremely frustrating because that will knock that puck loose. It's really hard to get around someone with a really accurate poke check. In my opinion, one of the more important stats for defensemen in the game. Next up, we've got body checking. Now, the body checking stat will affect the severity of your hits. High rating will allow you to deliver more effective body checks when you're trying to hit your opponent. Now, I need to be clear, this does not include size as well. This is strictly the body checking stat. Think of it like this. If you have a player that's 5'8" and he takes a full run at someone who's like 6'3" or 6'4", if that smaller player has a really high body checking stat, he's got a really good chance to knock that player down with a really devastating body check. However, when it comes to bumps, and I'm talking about when you're skating with someone and you're hitting up on the right thumbstick to try and deliver a small hit, that really doesn't play as much of an impact as size does when you consider height and weight. So someone that is very tall, let's say Victor Hedman on defense, he can be really effective with a lesser body check rating because his size and weight delivers a really, really high baseline already. This is something that you want to consider when you're using smaller defensemen. I talked a lot about in NHL 21 how Cale Makar was one of my favorite defensemen, and I'm not really someone who likes to use smaller defensemen, anyone under 6 foot, in the defensive zone because they can't really bump players off the puck effectively. However, he had a really high body checking stat, and it combined really well because he plays so fast. So just keep that in mind, but if you're going to use a smaller defenseman, you need to make sure that they have a higher body checking stat to at least give you some chance to bump them off the puck. Next up, we've got shot blocking. Now, this will help you determine how quickly you recover from blocking a shot and what style of shot block you use. In all honesty, in prior years, shot blocking hasn't really been all that important to me because rarely do you want to go down in a shot block animation because it'll take yourself out of the play. Not only that, your CPU is really the only one that will actually go into a shot block animation more often than not. However, as highlighted in the uncut gameplay video that EA released, it does appear that there are newer shot block animations, making it a lot more of a viable strategy in the game. In prior years, I would just recommend standing in the way, not crouching down, because that way you don't take yourself out of the play. But the new animations are quite effective. So while it is improved from prior years, it still really isn't all that important in the grand scheme of things when looking at defensemen or even forwards. Shot blocking just isn't really a stat you want to prioritize. Next up, we've got the discipline stat. And honestly, had it not been for the new explanation of attributes in NHL 22, this would have gone in the other bin because for the last decade, it has been viewed as one of the most useless stats in the game. The AI in online play simply does not take penalties anymore since I believe NHL 19, so the discipline stat really doesn't have anything to do with your own controlled player because, well, you're controlling him. Well, we learned that that actually isn't correct because the discipline stat will impact how often you are called for stick infractions if you are careless with the defensive skill stick. It'll also impact how careless you are with your elbows when delivering a gigantic body check on a player. So if you run at someone into the boards, someone with really low discipline could get charged for those really big boarding or elbowing calls that you see in online play from time to time. So while I don't think it's something to prioritize, just keep that in mind if you are going to use a star player or someone that you're going to invest a lot in. If they've got really low discipline, be careful with that, especially defensemen, because those are the ones you're going to be delivering a lot of your body checks with, as well as the ones that are going to be using the defensive skill stick with. So just keep that in mind. Next among defensive attributes, we've got face-offs. Now, the face-off stat will help determine the winner of a face-off, but there's a lot of things that come into play, and it's one of the attributes that isn't so black and white. Now, because the game is server-based, it can play into when people actually react to the ref dropping the puck, but let's pretend we're on LAN and everything is even when it comes to the actual connection to the game. If you have a player that has a really high face-off stat, significantly higher, let's say 15 to 20, you can win a draw even if you don't do the correct counter to what your opponent does on the face-off. Now, I'll have a video that comes out earlier on in the year that will walk you through every single face-off, but if you don't know how it works, it's basically a rock, paper, scissors formula. If someone does the backhand straight back, someone who does the backhand tie-up will win. That is the counter to that face-off. However, someone that has 12 attribute points or higher in the face-off rating going into that draw can do the incorrect one and still win. So there is a significant advantage there. Also, when you both do the exact same face-off maneuver, the one with the higher face-off rating will win. Now again, a lot of other factors come into play, but a high face-off rating is important for centermen. And the last defensive attribute that we'll cover is strength. So strength will help you hold your position during player collisions and help your ability to hold your ground or move your opponent during board battles and net front plays. So someone with a really high strength attribute won't be able to be pinned up along the boards by someone with a much lower one. Same thing with being stuck in front of the net. You'll find players that get stuck in that stick lift animation. Again, someone who's got a higher strength stat won't be able to be held in that stick lift animation as long. Now, this isn't one of the most important stats. Again, it is one of those ones that can combine with other attributes to become important, but again, not one to solely focus on. It's very, very situational, and one of the lesser important ones when it comes to defense. All right, guys, and on to our last section of attributes, skating. Now, if you're still with me in this video, I know it's a long one. Let me know in the comments section down below. I'd like to know who the real ones are that sit through an entire video. But let's get into the most important attributes in the game, obviously. Hockey is built on skating, and in NHL, it's no different. The fastest players are always going to give you the biggest advantage. That's just how hockey is played. So let's kick things off with the most important attribute in NHL 22, and that is speed. This is going to determine your maximum skating speed going forwards and backwards. So if you have two people that start at the exact same spot on the ice with the exact same attributes except for speed, what you'll see is after they've gotten into their full stride, they're up to their maximum actual skating speed, the one with the higher speed and higher maximum ceiling will pull away. But nothing's really changed. Speed is always going to be the most prioritized attribute, as it should be in all honesty. There's a reason why Connor McDavid and Nathan MacKinnon are the best players in the world. Them being able to skate at the speed of light is a big part of that, so no difference here. Next up, we've got agility. Now, a lot of focus is always on speed and acceleration, but agility is one of, in my opinion, the most important stats in the game, depending on how you play the game. So agility will determine your turning radius and how quickly you can accelerate or decelerate when you are making turns on the ice. So anytime you change directions, whether it be from a dead stop, back and forth, agility is the stat that's going to allow you to keep the most amount of momentum and speed while doing it. The reason why this is such an important stat is for anyone that uses the L2 and the half spins. Think of it like Cale Makar at the blue line, walking that line, back skating and changing all sorts of directions. That is the agility stat put to its ultimate test. If you are someone who uses L2 a lot to half spin and create time and space, agility is going to be a stat that you are really going to need to pay attention to, especially for wingers. This is also the one stat that leads to players feeling stiff, whether it be being deking or, again, making those cuts. Agility is usually the culprit of a player just feeling like a boat when they go to turn. Got acceleration, and again, like I mentioned, speed and acceleration usually go hand in hand when you combine it with agility. Those really are the fundamentals and the most important stats in the game. Acceleration will determine how quickly you can get to your maximum skating speed going forwards and backwards. Not really much else to discuss when it comes to acceleration. It's pretty self-explanatory. But when you think about positions that, you really want to focus on having a high acceleration stat, defensemen are really, really high on that list. And especially if you're someone who takes a lot of point shots, if you get a shot blocked and your defenseman, even if they have a decent speed rating, their acceleration is really low, they are not going to be able to get up to speed fast enough to make up for the fact that they've got another streaking player going the other way because you gave it away at the point. As well as wingers. Again, it's that transition game. Centerman, not really that much of a focus. You can get away with having a centerman that has a little bit lesser of an acceleration stat, but in my opinion, defensemen, they really, really need it, especially if you're someone who uses the points a lot. Next, we've got endurance, and that will determine your energy consumption and rate of recovery. So someone that has really low endurance, if they've got really high speed, that's phenomenal. But that also means that they're going to run out of gas extremely quick. I think back to NHL 21, and I believe the Mario Lemieux card at launch was obviously one of the best cards in the game throughout the whole year. But the one downfall to that card is it had really low endurance, and it made him really tired. He couldn't go end to end more than a couple times before you really had to change lines. So it is something to watch out for when it is drastically low. But when it comes to the other three stats, whether it be speed, acceleration, or agility, endurance is a distant fourth. And then we've got balance. Now this stat is going to help you avoid getting knocked off the puck and withstanding body checks. This one is very, very important because again, if you have low balance, it means that you're going to get bumped off the puck when someone is skating stride for stride with you. Again, I mentioned it earlier. If you are hitting up on the right stick and you are trying to do smaller body checks with somebody, if they've got a low balance attribute, you're going to have pretty high success with that. Now this also plays into their height and weight, but balance is an attribute that you need to keep an eye out for, specifically with smaller players. In my experience, cards like Mitch Marner and Elias Pettersson, they're a little bit taller, but they're also very slender, and they feel like they get bumped off very easily. If they don't have high balance attributes, it's going to be very tough to hold on and cycle the puck with that player. So again, not as important as speed, agility, or acceleration, but it is a very important stat that you need to keep an eye out for. So guys, that is every single attribute inside of NHL 22, and I hope this helps explain what exactly they all do and how to utilize them the most effectively, specifically in Hockey Ultimate Team. Now, if you enjoyed this video, let me know in the comment section down below. Give the video a like and subscribe for the most up-to-date NHL 22 content. I appreciate you guys for watching, and I'll be back next time with another tip video. Have a good one.